In the city of Orchard Lake, election news like you may not ever see again in your lifetime, at least on the local level, but probably all together. We gave you the unofficial election results right here on the Splash Live on Wednesday, November 5th, the day after the most recent election, reporting results directly from Oakland County, which included the Orchard Lake City Council election race as well. Well, folks, those results are unofficial until the election is certified by the Oakland County Board of Canvassers. And in the case of very close races, there will often be a recount, and sometimes there will be more votes one way or the other, or others that were missed in the initial counts by tabulators that will be counted and change those unofficial results. And in the case of Orchard Lake Village, it ended up going from being a narrow victory for DuAnne Sonneville to being a tie vote between her and her challenging candidate. And according to a statute enacted way back in 1955, this is per the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society, a simple coin flip that leads to a choice between two folded sheets of paper decides the tiebreaker. DuAnne Sonneville won the coin toss and got to choose between those two identically folded pieces of paper, one that read elected and one that was labeled not elected. The freshly re-elected council member now joins us to tell her side of the saga, as DuAnne not only won the coin toss, but also selected the page that read elected, which means she now is once again going to be on the Orchard Lake City Council. DuAnne, welcome to the program and congratulations.
Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Yeah, happy to have you on to talk about this because it's probably the most interesting local election outcome we'll ever see in our lifetimes here in Greater West Bloomfield. Certainly going to be the case making history in the city of Orchard Lake Village. So for you, in this case, how does it feel to be not only re-elected, but to be re-elected with this interesting outcome?
Well, we've gotten a lot of attention because of the tie. And I said, when you think about the number of votes between us, it was close to 500. It really can kind of give you pause that we ended up with the exact same number. I used to go in the fall to Oakland Community College to try and get students to register. This was before you could register when you got your driver's license. Mm-hmm. And one of the poli-sci professor came out and asked me if I would come in and talk to his class about the importance of every vote counting. And he was aware of it because he'd run for something in the past and lost by one vote. At that time, I had not planned to run for elected office. And little would I know that when I did, his record would pale in comparison to mine for a tie vote.
And so with that being the case, what message do you have to the greater public? Because of your advocacy before, now being involved in an historic election result like this, a tie in the Orchard Lake Village City Council election in 2025, what's your message to the voters or those that maybe don't participate in these local elections in between the presidential or the gubernatorial cycles on just how important their vote can be?
In general, Orchard Lake usually has a very good turnout, most by absentee vote. This year, we only had 23.1% turnout of the eligible voters to cast a ballot. My best guess is I think they are in general content with how the city is being run and thought they would be well served whether I was elected or Sean was elected. It's a very low turnout in general for our city. But the nice thing about this is we run as nonpartisans in the city. So it reminds us that we are there to serve all of our constituents, whether they voted for us or not, whether it was a tie vote or a landslide. And so I hope all of them feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns they might have.
DuAnne Sonneville is with us now, once again re-elected to the Orchard Lake Village City Council in the historic outcome, a tie vote that led to a tiebreaker that was formatted way back in the statute in 1955. We actually have a video from your husband, Christian, DuAnne, of the moment that this tie was broken. Let's take a look at that for those at home.
Sit down.
Unbelievable.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Sonneville has drawn the elected slip.
Congratulations,
and
wow.
is, declared
Wow.
elected to office.
Wow.
Hopefully this ends the matter.
Even in the moment of a loss, Sean O'Brien, the other candidate in that race, a big smile on his face, knowing he's part of history and knowing that his hometown, the city of Orchard Lake Village, is in good hands as well. DuAnne, that moment special for you in this case, and to the winner goes the spoils in those situations too. But to have that friendly of a race and this sort of an outcome, what does that say about these local elections, and in particular, the spirit of the city of Orchard Lake Village?
We spent both the entire election day at the polls and chatting, and neither of us were going to be worried about the outcome. We both knew that the other cared about our city and would give it his or her all. And so we went into it. It was a very collegial afternoon. And as you could see, even at the time of the election, when we picked the pieces of paper, that I would have been fine had Sean been chosen, and you could see he was fine. He's a great candidate, and in fact, when I was sworn in on Monday, I did mention I hope that he stays involved in local politics because he has a lot to offer our city.
And it's a very different kind of involvement in public service to be serving on city council or on a board or commission versus volunteering in the community. You've done both over the years. How much similarities and how much of a difference are there between volunteering with a community organization like you've done in the past with the Historical Society and in other capacities versus serving on a local board, a local commission, or in your case, city council?
It gives us a voice at the table. I've attended city council meetings for years, and I guess it didn't matter which side of the desk I sat on, but it's nice to be on the back side of the desk so that my voice, I can add input to the direction that we try to take.
And you mentioned earlier on that you hope Sean O'Brien, your competition in this particular race, stays involved in local politics. But this also could be one of those calling cards to a lot of other people across the city of Orchard Lake Village and the other greater West Bloomfield communities to get involved themselves, learn more about the political process, and especially at that local level. Why do you hope more people get involved in their local politics, DuAnne?
Well, as you know, it takes a lot to run. You're putting yourself out there. And so I hope because of this added attention with the tie, that it will be a reminder to our other citizens that if you have an area of expertise or you have a desire, we have committees and we can always use people. We need a variety of voices in our city.
DuAnne Sonneville is with us, Orchard Lake City Council member who won her recent re-election in historic fashion. A tie vote in the city of Orchard Lake Village led to a coin flip that allowed her to choose between two different sheets of paper, one that read elected and one that read not elected. She, of course, chose elected. DuAnne, before we let you go, such an historic moment and an interesting moment. You got the paper with you right there.
What a small piece of paper to make a difference. I plan, because it is historic, to donate it to the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society to be used as a reminder every fall about elections and make your voice heard.
There are no small races when it comes to our local elections. Every single one of those votes counts, and this is the perfect example. DuAnne, before we let you go and move on with your day, I have one final question for you. Because of the outcome of this, because of how everything turned out and all the luck in this case turning in your favor, when it came down to the decision, heads or tails?
Well, actually, I didn't get to choose. They give you either heads or tails, and I don't know how it was decided, whether it was done like alphabetically because heads comes before tails, as does O'Brien before Sonneville, but they do that. They assign that part, and then they flip the coin, They laughed. They had one other time when they flipped it outside and tried to do a little bit of a ceremony, and it rolled into a koi pond, so they had to repeat it. This time they held it inside to make sure there would be no problems. And it fell on tails, and so it was up to me to choose, and I can feel both pieces of paper. I happen to be lucky enough to pick the right one.
And the story just gets more and more interesting and compelling as
Unusual,
we dive
yep.
deeper into it. DuAnne, thank you so much for your time today to tell us your side of the tale here. And of course, we'll hear plenty more about it over the years with the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. DuAnne, thank you so much for your time today.
Tyler, thank you for having me.